Chapter 81 Space-Based Plan. You are listening at MTnovel. It's hard, we can't fight S.H.I.E.L.D. at all, we don't even know where they're shipping the looms. Sloane sighed and said, taking a step back, even if we can get the textile machine back, we will not be able to carry out the mission as before because S.H.I.E.L.D. will be watching us. Everyone's heart sank, and Debatu asked unwillingly, is this the end of the Assassin Brotherhood? Our mission has been passed down for thousands of years. The other assassins were equally unwilling. At this time, Mystique said, there is a way to solve your troubles, and it can also solve the troubles of us mutants. Sloane asked warily, what method? Mystique asked, ever heard of space-based weapons? I've heard of setting up instruments on satellites or space stations, throwing objects and emitting energy lasers. Sloane nodded and said, the energy laser technology is not enough, and the actual object is too heavy. At least a tungsten rod weighing several tons is impossible to transport. Therefore, space-based weapons have always been just a concept. It's just a concept for humans, not for us mutants. We have the ability to transport tungsten rods to the space station. Mystique smiled and said, the space-based weapon is powerful. A tungsten rod can destroy a city. It is safe and pollution-free. Many people call it the Rod of God. Firefox reacted and asked in shock, do you want to use space-based weapons to wipe out humans? Of course not, don't think of me as evil. Mystique said, I just want to threaten humanity into releasing all the mutants so that they allow us to establish a nation. After a pause, Mystique looked at Sloane and others, and continued, and, let them return the loom of destiny so that they will no longer interfere with you. That said, if humans don't accept her conditions, Mystique will definitely teach humans a lesson. As for the location, no need to ask, of course it's our old friend New York. As the saying goes, it's better to be experienced than to be a stranger. Threat to humanity. Firefox and others were a little excited, but Sloane shook his head repeatedly. What a joke. He just wanted to get rich. Threatening human beings is almost impossible to succeed. Even if he succeeds, the consequences will not be good. He really thinks that human beings are vegetarians. Ah. Mystique, let us go. We have no interest in cooperating with you. The Assassin Brotherhood exists to protect humans, not to threaten humans with guns. Sloane righteously refused. Mystique smiled, walked to Sloane, and whispered, if I tell them about you, do you think they will let you go? Sloane, today, you either agree, or turn into a corpse and have people carry it out. Sloane was shocked, how could Mystique know everything? He thought for a while and asked, Mystique, your Brotherhood of Mutants has so many talents, why do you want help from our Brotherhood of Assassins? Don't you hate humans very much? After Magneto was arrested, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been hunting down our Brotherhood. We have suffered heavy losses and there are very few manpower available now. Otherwise, we would not need to recruit you at all. Mystique sighs, in fact, the Brotherhood's loss would have been greater if she hadn't been disguised as Senator Kelly. Sloane was silent for a while and asked the others, this may be our only chance to get back the loom of destiny. What do you think? Another disgusting human being. Mystique snorted secretly. Sloane seemed to be asking for other people's opinions, but in fact, he had already preset a position. The loom of destiny must be brought back. Firefox answered without any hesitation, and the others nodded. Sloane sighed and said, then we will fight once, but Mystique, we have conditions. Mystique said, tell me about it. First, we have to follow you to the space station. Only in this way can our interests be guaranteed. Sloane said, second, we need to know your detailed plan. Cooperation is okay, but we are not intended to be cannon fodder. No problem, you can go to the space station with us. The space shuttle is not big and you can't bring too many people. In addition, you will have to undergo space training for the next half-month. Mystique said, as for the specific plan, I can tell you now. Toad, Misty, help them loosen their bonds. Toad and the others nodded. Soon, Sloane and the others were free. Then, Mystique turned on the projector, pointed at the picture of the space shuttle above and introduced, "The Stark Group is going to send Dr. Reed and his team to the space station. I'm going to hijacking a space shuttle as Senator Kelly, then, we took the tungsten rods to the space station to execute the space-based plan and make mankind surrender under the tungsten rods. With the help of Senator Kelly, hijacking the space shuttle will definitely not be a problem." Sloane nodded and asked, "Mystique, your plan doesn't seem to require our help. I need you to help me stop two people." Mystique changed the picture and said, "Andrew Wong is the chairman of Rebirth Group. He sold the space station to Tony Stark. For this space experiment, two people from Rebirth Group will go with him. In other words, Andrew Wong will be there when the time comes." "So what? Just a pretty boy?" The tinker clenched his fists and said with a displeased look on his face, "I like to deal with such a pretty boy. If I punch him, he will cry so miserably. It's more than addictive." Everyone quietly stayed away from the tinker, and after identification, he was a pervert. "Take him down. He can knock you down with one finger," Toad said disdainfully. Mystique nodded and said, "Don't underestimate him. Magneto was defeated by him. He is a super kung fu master and is good at fighting with umbrellas." "The kung fu master who defeated Magneto?" Sloane and others were a little shocked. This pretty boy could actually defeat the famous Magneto. The tinker became even more unhappy when he heard this. He was handsome and could fight. Why should all the benefits belong to him? Mystique did not tell more information, so as not to scare Sloane and the others away. She continued, "No matter what, Andrew King cannot be allowed to enter the base. Sloane, you have to send someone to stop him halfway." Sloane asked, "He is so powerful, how can we stop him? Although Andrew Wong is not a pervert, he is definitely not a serious person." Mystique looked at Firefox and said, "You can send Firefox to seduce him, or you can cause a car accident on his way to prevent him from moving forward. Your mission is not to defeat him, that is impossible. Your mission is to contain him and make him miss the time to go to the base." "I'm okay." Firefox nodded without any hesitation. As long as she could get back the Destiny Loom, she would do anything. Sloane's eyes flickered. If he guessed correctly, Mystique had concealed some information. However, he thought about it and did not object. If that's the case, it's not too difficult. Who is the other person who wants to stop her? He is one of the bipolar mutants, Professor Charles, who is holding us back every day. Mystique replaced the picture of Professor Charles and said, "Your assassin brotherhood has amazing sniper capabilities and can even hit targets several kilometers away. I want you to send people to target the Mutant Academy and threaten Professor Charles, who is out." "No. He went back to the Academy to use the brainwave enhancement device." Mystique added, "I checked. Professor Charles will be out that day and not in the Academy. You don't have to worry about being controlled by him." Chapter 82 Kidnapping. You are listening at MTnovel.audio. Leave this matter to me. Although I am not the strongest sniper in the Brotherhood, I have never failed to kill a target. The Assassin Brotherhood strongman Big Bay 2 nodded and said that the Brotherhood's strongest sniper is Cross, but he has betrayed the Brotherhood. Mystique said, "Okay, if you need any help, just ask. I will use Senator Kelly's power and financial resources to fully support you. Anyway, it will expire soon." Sloane and Debatu laughed at the same time. "Then we're welcome. This is the basic plan. As long as Andrew Wong and Professor Charles are stopped, the space-based project will be successful. By then, everything we want and everything you want will be available." Mystique said, "No matter how strong Andrew Wong is, he can't fly to the space station and beat us up. In fact, Mystique has prepared some backups, but they probably won't be used." "Can you get everything?" Greed flashed in Sloane's eyes. Maybe he could get more than half a month later, at the rocket launch base outside New York. Tony Stark personally came to see Dr. Reed and the others off. There are a total of 5 people in space this time: Susan Stone, the future Invisible Woman; Frank Custer, the future Mr. Fantastic; Dr. Reed, the future Mr. Fantastic, Ben, the future Stone Man, Jonathan Stone, future Human Torch, Susan's brother. Jonathan Stone was selected mainly because of Susan's face. This boy, who is suspected of being the illegitimate son of Captain America, relies on his handsome appearance to spend all day drinking and picking up girls, similar to Tony Stark in the past. Of course, Jonathan Stone also has real abilities. He is an astronaut himself. It is worth mentioning that all 5 of them were wearing blue and green uniforms produced by the Rebirth Group, a man-made fiber that is very similar to human skin. Tony walked up to Dr. Reed with his bodyguard Happy and said, "Dr. Reed, I have fulfilled all the conditions you have put forward. Don't let me down." "Don't worry, I won't let you down, nor will I let humans down. This experiment will definitely be successful." Dr. Reed said confidently. At the same time, he glanced at Susan secretly. After the experiment was successful, Susan would definitely fall in love with him again. "That's good." Tony nodded. "This experiment is of great significance. It can not only cure hundreds of diseases, but also increase the share price of Stark Group and completely complete the transformation from an arms tycoon to an energy tycoon." Then, Tony walked up to Susan and asked, "Miss Stone, isn't that guy with the whole body on fire here?" "On the road, he is always busy, although I don't know what he is busy with." Susan shook her head. She requested to go to the space station this time. She is a biologist and has research to do. I knew what he was up to, but I was afraid of being beaten to death by him, so I couldn't say anything. Tony spread his hands, and Susan thought he was joking and didn't pay much attention. After chatting for a while for 2 days, all preparations were completed and we were ready to board the plane at any time. The space shuttle was tied to the booster rocket. At this moment, a group of people suddenly walked in from outside. "Who is in charge of security at the rocket base? How come anyone can come in?" Tony was a little dissatisfied. Happy was about to admit his mistake when he suddenly remembered that he was not responsible here. Mystique, who transformed into Senator Kelly, walked up to Tony, stretched out her hand, and said with a smile, "Mr. Stark, please don't mind coming to the door." "Senator Kelly? Why are you here?" Tony was stunned for a moment. He couldn't chase the person away because of his high position. He stepped forward to shake hands with the person. At this moment, he felt a pain in his index finger, as if he had been pricked by a needle. Tony was startled. Just as he was about to say something, Mystique said in her own voice, "Paralysis needle." This voice, "You are." Tony was shocked. He wanted to do something, but he felt weak all over. He couldn't even stand still and fell towards Mystique. Mystique caught Tony and smiled. "Yes, it's me again, Mr. Stark. Congratulations on becoming my prisoner again. Congratulations to your family." If it wasn't for his lack of strength, Tony would definitely have yelled loudly, and he was actually captured by mutants again. Damn, where will he be tied up this time? Could it be the rockets? Let Tony go. Happy reacted and rushed towards Mystique with the Mark suit box. At this moment, a tongue shot from the side, wrapped around the box and retracted. Just as Happy was about to chase him, Big Steel Tooth came over, grabbed his neck and threw him out hard. Bang! Happy hit the wall and passed out. At the same time, Sloane and other mutants pointed guns at everyone. Everyone was shocked and did not dare to move at will. Frank immediately stood in front of the proprietress Susan. He was a little hesitant and didn't know whether to summon the suit. At this time, Andrew's voice sounded in his mind, "Just protect Susan, don't worry too much about the rest." Is this coming back to life again? Frank was a little shocked, and Andrew smiled and said, "Dahua, speaking of it, you Americans are living a really difficult life. It has only been a month since the hate incident." Frank was speechless. How terrible is life in the United States? Even the devil complained about it. "I think you should change your bodyguard." Mystique said to Tony, "This one is too fat." Tony regained a little strength and said with difficulty, "Don't hurt him." "Wow, you guys have such a deep bond." Mystique smiled, changed back to her original appearance, and then said to everyone, "Don't worry, as long as you cooperate well, we won't hurt you." What exactly do you want to do? Dr. Reed shouted angrily, this experiment is very important. If it succeeds, mankind will be free from the threat of disease. Susan added, you mutants can get sick too, and Dr. Reed's experiments will be equally useful to you. I didn't say I wouldn't let you do experiments. I will take the 5 of you and Iron Man to the space station. Mystique said, and everyone was stunned. The mutants actually wanted to go to the space station. What did they want to do? Sloane asked, a little puzzled, why bring them with you? They will only bring risks and troubles. Mystique asked, can you operate a space station? Sloane shook his head, how could I, the leader of a killer organization, operate a space station? Even the aerospace training was completed in more than half a month. I don't know how. I have to rely on them to operate. Moreover, they are good hostages. Don't worry, they can't make waves. Mystique said, okay, no time wasting, Misty, is it done at the console? Misty's voice came from the communicator, it's done, they are all obedient. Very good, bring in the tungsten rods and instruments and load them onto the space shuttle. The nights are long and the dreams are many. We have to set off as soon as possible. Mystique nodded, and then she said to Tony with a smile on her face, old friend, do you want to try what it feels like to be tied to a rocket? Chapter 83 Weightlessness. You are listening at MTnovel. Tony gritted his teeth angrily. He knew what Mystique meant and said, bring Mark's suit over here and I'll unlock it for you. Clever. Mystique nodded with satisfaction, pushed Tony to Toad, and asked him to unlock the Mark suit. With Mystique's push, Tony's fingers gently touched a certain location on his waist, sending out a distress signal. This was a rescue method developed by Tony after he was captured last time, but even he himself did not expect that he would use it so soon, and it was because of the same group of people. Tony looked sad and angry. What kind of unlucky person would install a distress signal in his body, and what kind of unlucky person would really use a distress signal? Or within a year? In fact, Mystique has blocked the signal here, but Tony's rescue method is relatively advanced, and ordinary shielding devices cannot block it. Tony's signal quickly reached Pepper, who was shocked and immediately notified S.H.I.E.L.D. of the incident and hired Psylocke to help again. Psylocke complained, Pepper, are you sure you don't want to find another man? How many times has this happened? If I don't change, I will identify with this man for the rest of my life. Pepper was also talking dirty words in her heart. She said she was fine last month, but she was immediately in danger this month. She said, anyway, if you rescue him for me, money is not an issue. Okay, you have the money, you have the final say. However, that base is a bit far away from me, so I may not be able to catch up. Ling Dai nodded and set off again. At the same time, S.H.I.E.L.D. quickly set off, and Black Widow complained, is there any mistake? Is this frequency too high? When will Coulson return to New York to take charge? I miss him so much now. John Garrett sighed, he was here specifically to cover for Coulson, or rather, to suffer. Natasha said, let's go quickly. If something happens to the rocket base, it will be terrible. Garrett nodded, and soon, the group took a Quinjet and rushed to the rocket base outside New York. At the rocket base, a truck drove in. In addition to 10 tungsten rods, there were also some devices needed for space-based weapons. The space-based plan was not actually thought up by Mystique herself. It was an idea that Magneto had long ago. However, it has not been implemented due to some factors. Dr. Reed couldn't help but ask, what on earth do you want to do? The space shuttle cannot transport such a heavy tungsten rod. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean we can't do it. It's weightless. Mystique shouted to a small mutant, who nodded and walked to the tungsten rod. Then, he held the tungsten rod in his hand, and a layer of black light gradually spread from his palm to the entire tungsten rod. After a moment, the pale, overexhausted little mutant let go of the tungsten rod in his hand without weight, and the blacklit tungsten rod floated in the air as if weightless. Is this controlling gravity or reducing weight? Tony was a little surprised. The abilities of mutants are really diverse, but humans are not bad either. For example, The Rebirth Group has an artificial gravity system, and there is a doctor who is studying gravitonium. Dr. Reed looked at the floating tungsten rod and exclaimed, "Wow, your ability is very useful for space research. Are you interested in being my assistant?" Weightless heard the words and mocked, "Someone once made a similar request to me, and then, he almost drained my blood. We mutants are just experimental products to you humans. After today, nothing will be the same." Mystique gave Weightless encouragement, turned to Big Steel Teeth and said, "Bring the people out." Big Steel Teeth nodded silently, and took out a group of tied prisoners from the truck. All of them were die-hard supporters of Senator Kelly, and they were all killed by Mystique with poison gas. Mystique said coldly, "Make their lives weightless, weightless, make the tungsten rod and all of us weightless. Thank you for your hard work." "No hard work, for the mutants," Weightless said firmly, and so did the other mutants. Then, the life-link mutant came over, his hands lit up with purple light, and transferred the life of a prisoner to Weightless. The previously sluggish Weightless suddenly became full of life. The remaining prisoners were frightened and whined, obviously begging for mercy. Unfortunately, the mutants had no intention of letting them go. After spending several months together, they knew very well the virtues of these people. If it weren't for the plan, these die-hard anti-mutants would have been killed by them long ago, and they were extremely cruel. Tony couldn't stand it anymore and asked angrily in a weak tone, "How can you kill innocent people like this? First of all, they are not innocent. Each one of them wants to exterminate us mutants. Secondly, we are much more merciful than you humans. At the very least, we only kill people, do not torture people, let alone do experiments on people." Mystique said through gritted teeth, "After she killed Trask, she was captured by humans and used as an experimental subject for several years. She still shudders even when she thinks about those days when life was worse than death. This is why Mystique hates humans so much, and she really doesn't mind wiping them all out if she can." Tony was speechless. Even he was powerless against the conflict between mutants and humans. Mystique ignored Tony and said, "Big Steel Teeth, tie the weightless materials to the space shuttle. Toad, modify the space shuttle and get us some simple seats." "Good." The mutants nodded one after another and arranged everything as quickly as possible. They were full of expectations. If they succeeded this time, they would have their own country. By then, they would no longer be discriminated against and everyone would be happy. Life. I hope it won't affect my experiment. Dr. Reed sighed and was a little speechless. He pointed at Susan and whispered, "Reed, now is a good opportunity to gain favor." Dr. Reed's eyes lit up and he was about to go over to comfort Susan. At this time, Frank stood between him and Susan and gave him a warning. Dr. Reed smiled coquettishly and turned around to continue talking to Ben. Frank snorted and turned to Susan, "Miss Stone, you don't have anything to worry about. You are the boss's woman. No one on Earth can hurt you. I didn't expect you, with your thick eyebrows and big eyes, to be able to flatter people." Susan couldn't help laughing and said, "I hope Andrew can get here in time." Mystique heard this and said, he was too late, because he was having a passionate fight with a beautiful woman. Let's push the time forward a little. On the streets of New York, Andrew, who was driving a convertible, stopped in front of a traffic light. "When will Howard's artificial intelligence research be completed?" "With artificial intelligence, you don't have to wait for the traffic light anymore." Isn't this a little overqualified?" Andrew was thinking wildly. At this time, accompanied by a gust of fragrance, a hot beauty wearing only a vest and hot pants leaned against the passenger door and asked, "Handsome man, are you interested in taking me for a ride?" Chapter 84 Delaying Time. You are listening at MTnovel.audio. Andrew looked at the other person up and down and said, "This script is wrong. With your temperament, you should pretend to be chased by someone, or chase someone else, and then point a gun at my head and ask me to drive immediately." Firefox was confused. "What the hell is this?" Speaking of which, Firefox's initial thoughts were similar to what Andrew said, but Mystique warned her that it was very dangerous to point a gun at Andrew's head, and someone was almost killed because of this. Therefore, Wahoo could only pretend to be a chat girl, and she said, "If you are interested, I can meet your special request. Sorry, I don't like yours. Goodbye. At this time, the traffic light turned green and Andrew was about to leave. Seeing this, Firefox put her hand on the car door and jumped into the passenger seat. Then, she asked, if you don't like my car, which one do you like? Andrew was about to answer when explosions and gunshots suddenly came from the front. Firefox pretended to be horrified and shouted, "Run away, there is danger." It seems that they are not trying to strike up a conversation, but rather delaying my time and preventing me from going to the rocket base. Andrew understood. He looked into Firefox's eyes and said, "Let me see, what are you going to do?" Stared by Andrew's burning eyes, countless past scenes popped up in Firefox's mind. Soon, the scene came to when Mystique introduced the space-based plan to them. Space-based plan? Andrew's eyes lit up. Mystique Raven actually had such an idea. Although it is unlikely that all 10 tungsten rods will fall, there is a high possibility that 1 or 2 will fall. 1 bar means a big city. Wow, how many souls can this collect? To be honest, Andrew was a little touched. The mutants were really good people and kept sending their souls to him. People who are philanthropic will indeed have good luck. What did you do to me? Firefox recovered and asked Andrew in horror. Andrew said lightly, "It's nothing serious, I just looked at your memory." "Isn't this a big deal?" Wahujing asked in a mixture of shock and anger. What was on her mind? Her face changed. "Do you know our plan?" "Look here." Andrew took out his cell phone and turned on the flashlight. Firefox's expression immediately became confused. Her memory was restored to the beginning, which meant that she did not remember that Andrew had read her memory. Then, Andrew thought for a moment and did not call the Daily Bugle right away. The matter would be reported later. What are you waiting for? When Mystique enters the space station, both the satellite and the space station can be shot down, so we have to wait until Mystique is ready before reporting. By then, the deal is done, and the tungsten rods can be launched at any time. Unless humans and mutants want to lose both sides, they will never dare to attack the space station. At this time, Wahoo recovered from her confusion. She heard the gunfire in front of her and pretended to be horrified, shouting, "Run away, there is danger ahead." "You seem to have something wrong." Andrew glanced at Firefox, started the sports car and sped forward. He still had to perform the play that was supposed to be performed, and there had to be an excuse for not arriving. In addition, Firefox and the others had made so many preparations, and they couldn't let them go to waste. Andrew, but a good devil who knows how to be considerate of others. "What are you doing? It's dangerous ahead." Firefox was a little anxious, pretending to be frightened and pulled Andrew's hand. Andrew grabbed her wrist and shook it gently. The bones in Firefox's body shook one after another starting from her arm. She made a very suspicious sound and collapsed in the passenger seat. Unable to move. He really is a kung fu master. Firefox was shocked, and Andrew smiled slightly and took the initiative to help Firefox fasten her seatbelt to prevent her from flying out. Soon, Andrew came to the explosion site ahead. He took a look, quickly turned the steering wheel, and passed through the alley on the side. "Oops, hurry up and catch up." When the Brotherhood saw this, they quickly sent a group of motorcyclists to chase Andrew. This group of motorcyclists are not members of the Brotherhood, they are motorcycle masters they paid to hire, and they should be able to delay Andrew for a while. Fast and furious. I wonder if there are those guys in this world. Andrew smiled. He didn't need any special abilities, just used his driving skills to play with the guys behind him. To be honest, Andrew is an experienced driver. Back in the day, he created countless tracks in hell and then used his tractor to pass the highest level of challenges. Firefox saw it in his eyes and was anxious in his heart, but couldn't do anything. Fortunately, they had arranged many means in advance, which should be able to delay it for enough time. Andrew got excited and turned the steering wheel hard to control the sports car to tilt and drift. The motorcyclists behind him had no time to turn and hit the wall one after another, with motorcycle parts flying everywhere. The news made by the Assassin Brotherhood quickly alerted the New York police, so the racing team grew again. When Andrew was catching shrimpers on the street, S.H.I.E.L.D. and Psylocke rushed to the rocket base one after another. Unfortunately, they arrived late. The rocket had already rumbled into the sky, and they could only vaguely see a shadow in the sky. Due to limited seats, some mutants did not board the space shuttle. Under the leadership of Misty, they used base researchers as hostages to confront S.H.I.E.L.D. to buy enough time for Mystique and the others. Go in and ask Mystique and the others about their purpose. Garrett cursed and led the agents to attack, but the entire base was shrouded in fog, and even they could not defeat the mutants quickly. Naturally, Ling Dai didn't care about such nonsense. She looked at the rocket in the sky, called Pepper, and said, "Good news or bad news, which one do you want to hear first?" "Bad news," Pepper said. Psylocke said, "Tony was kidnapped by mutants and is now flying to the space station." Pepper looked a little ugly and asked, "What about the good news?" Psylocke said faintly, "The good news is that Tony is not tied to the rocket." "What good news is this?" Pepper almost smashed the phone, but then she thought about it. This was indeed good news. At least Tony was still alive. Pepper cursed and hurriedly met with Nick Fury and asked him to protect Tony and not attack the space station. "Are there any mutants who come out every once in a while to cause trouble? Do they think humans don't hate them enough?" At the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, Nick Fury was cursing and skillfully opening his phone. Maria Hill and other staff saw this and secretly rolled their eyes, pretending not to see it. Bugle TV was indeed broadcasting this incident live, and they broke two big news. Iron Man Tony Stark has been kidnapped again. Senator Kelly is actually Mystique Raven in disguise, and his supporters were wiped out by mutants. The live broadcast didn't say what the mutants were planning to do. It seems that the mysterious man doesn't know everything. Nick Fury was both disappointed and relieved. To be honest, that mysterious man put a lot of pressure on S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. is the world's largest intelligence agency. As a result, from the director down to the employees, every day watch and get information quickly. The people in the intelligence department are a little suspicious of life. Chapter 85 Countermeasures. You are listening at MaleProtagonist. Nick Fury put the phone aside and asked Hill, "What is Andrew Wong doing?" Hill replied, "While racing in New York, judging from the situation at the scene, someone was deliberately preventing him from going to the rocket base. In addition, Andrew Wong is not only a kung fu god, a gun god, but also a car god." The people from the technical department even hacked into the New York transportation system in order to record a video of him racing. Not doing his job properly. Nick Fury cursed and said, "Remember to download a copy of the video and send it to my email. I want to fully understand the strength of Andrew Wong." Hill rolled his eyes secretly and said, "Understood." Nick Fury thought for a while and asked Hill again, "Where is Professor Charles?" Hill said, "Visiting Magneto in the island prison. Tell him the news and let him find out from Magneto what Mystique wants to do." Nick Fury said, "If Magneto doesn't know, let Professor Charles go back to the Academy and use the brainwave enhancement device to control Raven." Hill nodded, "Understood." Soon, Professor Charles learned about this. He asked Magneto, who was playing chess with him, "Eric, what are you doing again? I don't know what's going on out there, but whatever it is, they're not wrong." Magneto said slowly, "Charles, you cannot buy the dignity and status of mutants by bowing your knees. You were wrong from the beginning." Professor Charles said angrily, "Why do you think I want to cooperate with S.H.I.E.L.D.? Isn't it because of you? Do you know what kind of situation mutants will be reduced to once the Mutant Registration Act is passed?" Magneto snorted, "If you cooperate with me, there will be no Mutant Registration Act at all, only a Human Registration Act. Eric, you are hopeless." Professor Charles controlled the wheelchair and left the prison in disappointment. He had already checked that Magneto did not know about this. At the gate of the isolated island prison, Professor Charles said to Cyclops, "Scott, send me back to the Academy. I want to use the brainwave enhancement device." Cyclops was about to nod when Professor Charles's cell phone suddenly rang. After he answered the call, Storm's solemn voice came from the speaker, "Professor, someone is targeting our college with a sniper rifle. They are taking the students on the playground as hostages. We don't dare leave the Academy to find them. They said you are not allowed to return to the Academy, otherwise they will kill all the students before you come back. Riven, Professor Charles was extremely angry. Both Eric and Raven had changed. They would do anything to achieve their goals. Professor Charles sighed, agree to their conditions. Cyclops was also very angry. He said, Professor, do you want me to go back secretly? Scott, we can't afford the gamble. Professor Charles shook his head. At this time, his cell phone rang again. It was Nick Fury calling, Professor, watch the live broadcast on Quaisho. Your sister is playing bigger than anyone else this time. Professor Charles was stunned, and quickly opened TikTok and found the live broadcast of Clarion TV. This station has just received news that Mystique is preparing to use space-based weapons on the space station to attack major cities. Bugle TV not only detailed what space-based weapons are, but also selected the 10 cities most likely to be attacked. There is no doubt that the first place on the list is New York, the most disaster-friendly city. Space-based weapons? Riven, are you crazy? Professor Charles was a little desperate. After this time, humans will definitely hate mutants even more. He said to Cyclops, go to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. The people of New York are more desperate than Professor Charles. Other cities can take chances, but New York cannot. This is something the people of New York know very well, therefore, the people of New York naturally began to flee. Frank's wife looked lucky. Fortunately, she had moved to Los Angeles, otherwise she would have been as worried as the New York residents. The disaster of the world itself, coupled with the disaster caused by the butterfly storm, no wonder the Ancient One wants to let me in. Andrew secretly sighed. It was obvious that GUI wanted to find someone to take the blame together. At S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, Nick Fury walked to an empty room and called his Skrull friends to ask if they could return to Earth. Talos, the Skrull, said helplessly, Fury, we are not in the solar system and there is no time to go back. Nick Fury was a little disappointed. He thought for a while and asked, can you send a spaceship back? Things have been increasing in the past 2 years, and I need some help. Talos nodded, that's okay, Fury. Putting down the phone, Nick Fury smashed the table with hatred, damn mutants. The world is becoming more and more dangerous. Perhaps it is time to restart research on the cosmic Rubik's Cube. Nick Fury secretly thought that the cosmic cube is an endless energy source. During World War II, the Red Skull used it to create a large number of energy weapons. The inside of the cosmic cube is actually a space gem, but the people at S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't know it. At this time, Hill knocked on the door outside. Director, the World Security Council has held an emergency meeting and requires you to arrive immediately. I'll be there right away. Nick Fury nodded. This time it is a global disaster, and the World Security Council will definitely come forward in person. I propose to launch a rocket nuclear bomb to blow up the space station. Gideon Malik, the United States representative on the World Security Council, said, although they have hostages, they can't care about that much at this time. No. Nick Fury shook his head and said, according to the intelligence, Mystique has 10 tungsten rods in her hand. There is no way to hide the launch of a nuclear bomb from her. When the time comes, she will definitely choose to kill the enemy. With our current technology, we cannot stop the tungsten rods. 10 tungsten rods. Fury, did you get the information from Quaido? Gideon scoffed, and then said, even if we don't launch nuclear bombs, Mystique will still throw tungsten rods. Rather than being passive when the time comes, it's better to strike preemptively. Nick Fury said, no, Mystique is not a madman. She did so much to negotiate with us, not to destroy the world. Not crazy, do you know what she did? She killed Senator Kelly and pretended to be him for months. Gideon shouted, the president asked me to tell you that he is dissatisfied. Nick Fury, you have failed in your duty. We can wait until the disaster is over to discuss these things. Nick Fury said, I hope you will authorize me to negotiate with Mystique. Gideon asked dissatisfiedly, are you ready to give in? Nick Fury shouted in a deep voice, the key is not to surrender or not, the key is not to let the tungsten rod fall. I believe you know how terrifying the power of the rod of God is. Of course we know, so we're anxious. Another director said that at this time, Hill knocked on the door outside and said, Professor Charles is here and he said he has a way to stop this. Chapter 86 White Queen. You are listening at MaleProtagonist. Really? That's great. Nick Fury was overjoyed and said, Hill, you stay here to help me hold the meeting. Everyone, I will go see Professor Charles first. Are you going to put the fate of the world in the hands of another mutant? Gideon said coldly, how do you know he is not Mystique's accomplice? I think Professor Charles should be arrested first. If he was an accomplice of Mystique, we would have died long ago, Mr. Director. He is more trustworthy than most humans, including you and me. Nick Fury snorted, stopped wasting time, and went out to see Professor Charles. In the office, Nick Fury said straight to the point, Professor, the situation is very critical now. We must solve this matter as soon as possible, otherwise both humans and mutants will suffer catastrophe. I know. Professor Charles didn't talk nonsense. He said, there are two ways to solve this matter. One is that I use a brainwave enhancement device to control Raven and the others, but now someone is threatening my college, and I can't go back for the time being. Nick Fury asked, Professor, are a few of your students more important than tens of millions of lives? Human life cannot be measured in numbers. Professor Charles said, also, we have other ways to deal with this without risking it. An idea popped up in Nick Fury's mind, and Professor Charles sensed it immediately. He said dissatisfiedly, Director Fury, if you really do that, I will leave immediately and ignore this matter. Fark. Nick Fury couldn't help but cursed. If the situation was not urgent, he would never meet with Professor Charles in person. He said, I give up the idea before, Professor, is there any other way to solve this damn thing? Find the Red Devil and let him take me to the space station. Professor Charles said, after entering the space station, I will control everyone as soon as possible. By then, the crisis will naturally be resolved. Nick Fury's eyes lit up and he asked, Red Devil, that mutant who can teleport? Can he teleport to the space station? He can teleport all over the Earth, and he should be able to teleport to the space station. Professor Charles nodded, the question now is, how to catch him? He can teleport, so it is not easy to catch him. There's no need to arrest him. Let's contact the Black King directly and ask him to bring the Red Devil over. Nick Fury said, if the Black King does not agree, I will destroy the Hellfire Club. Now the whole world is standing behind me, and the Black King's network is nothing. Professor Charles was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, I was wrong. With the character of the Black King, he will definitely bring the Red Devil here to help, unless he is willing to give up everything he has now. He couldn't bear it. The so-called elite mutants are each more selfish than the last. Nick Fury sneered, without further delay, I will call the Black King right away. Professor, you are ready at the headquarters. As soon as the Red Devil comes, you take action immediately. After a pause, Nick Fury added, don't worry, after the matter is resolved, I will try my best to eliminate the negative impact of this matter on mutants. Thank you. Professor Charles nodded, his heart filled with exhaustion. When will these days end? Every time he took a small step forward, the Brotherhood of Mutants pulled him back a giant step. Human beings are certainly responsible for the situation that mutants are in today, and extreme mutants are also responsible. In the Hellfire Club, the Black King knew that the stakes were high and did not refuse Nick Fury's request. However, he took the opportunity to put forward a bunch of conditions. Nick Fury said, I can agree to all these conditions, but you must bring the Red Devil over. If you break your promise, I will destroy the Hellfire Club. Don't worry, the Red Devil will be here soon. The Black King, dressed like a high-class gentleman, smiled, and then he called the Red Devil and asked him to go back to the Hellfire Club to discuss something. I'm very busy right now. If you need anything, just call me. While playing cards with Fong Mo, the Red Devil said, there is nothing more important than pleasing your boss. It's a very important thing. You can talk about it first when you come back. The Black King said with some dissatisfaction that in the past few months, the Red Devil had only returned to the club a handful of times, and he ignored his orders. It was obvious that this guy had other intentions. The Red Devil said, "Okay, I'll be back after finishing this fight." "Are you playing cards?" That the Black King was almost furious. "Would you rather play cards than come back to see your boss?" "What do you think the boss is?" The Red Devil put down the phone indifferently. The boss he was following now was the Demon King of Hell. He was just a Black King. What the hell? The Red Devil said, "Boss, I will go back to deal with the Black King first, and I will come back later to play cards with you." Mtlnovel said, "Go, don't be anxious, we are just looking for someone to give you a massage. In order to pursue performance, we have not enjoyed it during this period of time." The Water Demon and the Earth Demon nodded in agreement. There is one thing in this world that is more terrifying than the devil, and that is the pursuit of performance. "Looks like I'll be back later." The Red Devil laughed and turned into red mist and disappeared. At the Hellfire Club in the casino, the Red Devil appeared out of thin air in front of the Black King and asked, "Black King, what's the matter?" "Of course it's a big deal." The Black King told the story with a dark face, and then he said, "You should go to the SHIELD headquarters immediately and save the world with Professor Charles." "You want me to save the world?" That the Red Devil pointed at himself and asked in astonishment, "Black King, when have you ever seen a savior who looks like me?" That looking at the red-skinned devil in front of him, the Black King was also a little speechless. He said, "Go if you are told, don't talk so much nonsense. No time, let the X-Men save the world on their own." The Red Devil flatly refused. Who has ever heard of a devil from hell saving the world? More importantly, if he takes action, he will destroy Boss's good deeds. When the time comes, Boss will definitely throw him into the volcano and impose an eternal curse on him. Red Devil, you are so brave. The Black King was already dissatisfied and shouted angrily upon hearing this. Then, a spiritual power invaded the Red Devil's mind. The Red Devil's expression changed, and he wanted to teleport away. At this moment, the spiritual power pierced his consciousness like an awl. He screamed, and his body turned into red mist and reappeared in the hall. The White Queen, that the Red Devil covered his head and asked angrily, "Black King, White Queen, what are you doing?" That the White Queen, a blonde beauty with a perfect figure wearing a pure white mink coat, walked out from behind and said in a cold voice, "What are you doing?" "Red Devil, I should ask you this question, what exactly do you want to do?" "Lien He, do you dare to disobey the king's orders?" "So what?" That the Red Devil snorted coldly and used a unique skill, to complain to Boss, "Boss, the Black King and White Queen forced me to save the world and destroy your good deeds." Andrew was a little surprised and asked, "Forcing you to save the world? Who is so visionary?" Chapter 87 Conditions. You are listening at MaleProtagonist. Is such that. The Red Devil recounted the matter in his mind, and expressed his loyalty, "Boss, even if I die, I will not ruin your business." Andrew's eyes flashed and he said, "Maybe you can save the world." The Red Devil was stunned. Is the boss talking sarcastically, or did he really ask him to save the world? "Red Devil, who are you communicating with?" That the White Queen sensed the mental fluctuations of the Red Devil and followed his consciousness to connect with Andrew's consciousness. The next second, a majestic figure appeared in the White Queen's mind, as if the whole world was in front of him. The White Queen was not even an ant. The figure noticed the White Queen's presence and lowered his head to look at her. The White Queen couldn't bear his gaze at all, and her soul almost exploded. "Great being, please forgive me." The White Queen was so frightened that she knelt down and begged. She never thought that the person connected to the Red Devil's consciousness was actually a god. No wonder the Red Devil has become so arrogant. It turns out there is a back end. Andrew's voice thundered, "Give me your soul." The White Queen did not hesitate and said immediately, "Great existence, my soul, everything about me belongs to you." "Very good." Andrew took back his consciousness and said at the same time, "Work with the Red Devil to send the Black King to hell." This order also reached the Red Devil's mind, and the Red Devil said excitedly, yes, boss. Black King Sebastian Shaw didn't know what happened in the consciousness space. He shook the red wine glass and said to the Red Devil, Red Devil, listen to my orders honestly, otherwise don't blame me for being rude. Black King, I was wrong. I will obey your order and help Professor Charles. The Red Devil lowered his head and admitted his mistake obediently. The Black King smiled proudly and said, this is the attitude you should have, Red Devil. Nick Fury has promised me many conditions. After this time, our Hellfire Club will become even better. Being powerful, your benefits will be indispensable when the time comes. The Black King was thinking about a better future. At this moment, he suddenly felt dizzy and his body lost strength. Immediately afterwards, the surroundings changed. The Red Devil did not lower his head, and the White Queen walked up to him at some point and placed a small bottle under his nose. The Black King didn't know that it was just an illusion. He endured dizziness, stood up reluctantly, and asked the White Queen angrily, Emma, what are you doing? Send you to hell. The White Queen spread her hands and said, don't blame me. If you want to blame me, just blame yourself for offending someone you shouldn't offend. The Red Devil sneered, Black King, the Hellfire Club will indeed become more powerful, but it has nothing to do with you. The Black King wanted to say something else, but the poison completely broke out, and he fell to the ground with a thud and passed out. This poisonous gas was specially prepared by the White Queen for the Black King, and came from other mutants. The Red Devil said, TSK, White Queen, it turns out you have always had bad intentions towards the Black King. Hellfire Club, no one is worth trusting, right? That the White Queen turned her finger into a diamond and said, I will send him to hell myself. Did you misunderstand something? That the Red Devil hurriedly stopped the White Queen and said, when the boss said he would go to hell, he really meant going to hell, not killing him. The White Queen looked confused. Wouldn't going to hell mean killing someone? The Red Devil did not explain anymore. He took the White Queen and the Black King and teleported to the rebirth hell. Then, he said to Andrew, Boss, the Black King has been brought. Send him to Trask, and Trask is going to give him a job. Andrew said. The Red Devil nodded and left with the Black King. What awaits the Black King will be a job called, being studied. To be honest, Trask was very excited about the arrival of the Black King. The Black King was not only a perfect experiment, but also a perfect target. Leaving aside the Black King for the time being, the White Queen only then knew that Andrew was a Hell Lord. She hurriedly knelt down, leaned forward slightly, and shouted, Boss. Andrew sat high on the throne and said, Get up, White Queen Emma, take control of the Hellfire Club for me. It will be useful in the future. The White Queen stood up and said respectfully, Yes, Boss, the Hellfire Club and I are ready to serve you at any time. Andrew nodded, Okay. At this time, the Red Devil returned, and Andrew explained to the two of them and sent them back to the world. Hellfire Club. Just by the name, you know it's my property. Andrew smiled. Now it depends on whether S.H.I.E.L.D. is willing to hand over the thing. In the Hellfire Club, the White Queen breathed a sigh of relief. She said to the Red Devil, Red Devil, it turns out that you are already a veritable devil. You should thank me. Boss has super thick thighs, much better than Black King. The Red Devil said, Emma, serve the boss well, and you will have everything you want, including immortality and youth. Immortal and eternal youth. That there was a flash of heat in the White Queen's eyes. She spent millions on her body every year. These two things were very tempting to her. It seems that if I have to find more opportunities to meet with the boss, maybe one day I can become the Queen of Hell. The White Queen thought secretly, and then she said, Let's not talk about this first. Let's complete the boss's mission first. In S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury received a call from the Black King. He said dissatisfiedly, Sebastian Shaw, why hasn't the Red Devil come yet? The Black King has gone to hell, and now I'm in charge of the Hellfire Club. The White Queen's voice sounded, and Nick Fury was stunned and asked, The White Queen. Emma, now is not the time for you to act recklessly. Professor Charles said displeasedly, he once taught the White Queen for a period of time, and the two were considered masters and apprentices. "Professor, I didn't do anything wrong." The White Queen smiled and said, "Director Fury, what the Black King promised you before still counts. However, I talked to the Red Devil and he cannot teleport to the space station unless you lend him the Cosmic Cube." "Cosmic Cube? White Queen, what do you want to do?" Nick Fury frowned. This was obviously just an excuse. The White Queen's real purpose was the Cosmic Cube. To be precise, it was Andrew who wanted the Cosmic Cube. In fact, he had already had ideas about the space gems. Whether this matter succeeds or fails, Andrew will not suffer any loss. If he succeeds, he will get the space gem in the universe Rubik's Cube. If he fails, he will gain a lot of souls. In addition, just because the Red Devil takes action does not mean that Professor and the others will definitely succeed. "There are still variables in this matter," the White Queen said. "I'm just telling you a fact, Director Fury. Don't worry, the Cosmic Cube will be returned to you immediately after use." Nick Fury naturally didn't believe it. He said coldly, "White Queen, this is a global crisis. The dignitaries you have made friends with will not protect you. What's the use of scaring me?" The White Queen, who was backstage, didn't take S.H.I.E.L.D. seriously at all. She said, "Without the Cosmic Cube, even if you break the Red Devil's legs, he won't be able to teleport to the space station." The Red Devil said next to the White Queen, "That's right, without the Cosmic Cube, I can't teleport. We are not negotiating terms with you, we are telling a fact." Chapter 88 Threat. You are listening at MTnovel.audio. Nick Fury and Professor Charles both frowned. The White Queen and the Red Devil were so stubborn and refused to let go. At this time, the White Queen said again, "We have no intention of breaking our promise. If you don't agree, you can find someone else, or agree to Mystique's request." "I'm going to think about it." Nick Fury hung up the phone and said to Professor Charles, "Professor, the Cosmic Cube is very important and cannot be given to anyone casually. I think it is better to use a brainwave enhancement device. With Barton taking action himself, your students will be in almost no danger. Director Fury, no matter how important the Cosmic Cube is, it is just a foreign object. Moreover, the Red Devil is just borrowing it for a while, and he will return it." Professor Charles shook his head repeatedly. In his heart, those students were no different from his children, and he would never let them take any risks. Nick Fury is helpless. To be honest, he doesn't want to lend the Cosmic Cube out at all. After all, the other party may not return it if he borrows it. He often does this kind of thing. Ahem. At this time, Hill walked in and said, "Mystique is threatening us. Let's push the time forward a little." The space shuttle arrived at the space station smoothly. Mystique breathed a sigh of relief and left the plane with Dr. Reed and others and entered the main base of the space station. The space station has artificial gravity. Except for Mystique and others who have black lights on their bodies, others will not float. According to predictions, the cosmic storm will arrive in 10 hours. "Mystique, you promised me to allow me to conduct experiments." Dr. Reed said to Mystique, who was releasing the weightless state. In addition to the future Fantastic Four, Frank, and Mystique, those who boarded the space station were Iron Man Tony, Assassin Leader Sloan, Mutant Toad, and Big Steel. Teeth, Weightless. "Don't worry, you and Tony Stark first transfer the authority of the space station to me, and teach me how to control the space station." Mystique said, "Dr. Reed, Tony Stark, don't play tricks, otherwise, you will all die. I have reached this point, there is no way out, and I have no intention of retreating." Tony, who was being carried by Big Steel Teeth, couldn't help but ask, "What on earth do you want to do?" "Threatening humanity and establishing a country belonging to mutants, that's all." Mystique said, "Don't talk nonsense, transfer the authority quickly." Dr. Reed glanced at Susan and didn't do anything more. He just helped Mystique control the space station. The same was true for Tony. He had no power to resist now. After taking complete control of the space station, Mystique led Toad and others to deploy space-based weapons. To be honest, this was not difficult because space-based weapons were very simple and relied on gravity. after all the arrangements were completed, Mystique used the communication system on Mark's suit to contact the World Security Council and state her requirements. Release all mutants. In addition, we mutants must establish our own country. This is impossible. The directors were upset. The former request was negotiable, but the latter was absolutely impossible. With the strength of the mutants, once a country was established, the entire world would be in turmoil. I'm not begging you, I'm asking you. Mystique sneered, if you don't agree. Nick Fury said, if we don't agree, you're going to bomb 10 cities with tungsten rods, right? How do you know? Mystique was stunned for a moment, then reacted and sneered, you got the news from Bugle TV, right? I heard that every employee of S.H.I.E.L.D. has Quaijo installed on their mobile phones. Can you not mention this? Nick Fury looks ugly. Have you ever heard of hitting someone without slapping him in the face? He said, Mystique, if you do this, it will only cause us humans to deal with you mutants with all our strength. What's the difference between now and what you said? Mystique sneered, the rod of God is ready. If you don't agree, the first tungsten rod will attack New York in half an hour. If you still don't agree, the remaining 9 tungsten rods will hit New York in an hour. 9 major cities around the world will be hit. The directors looked ugly, but did not dare to refuse directly. Nick Fury thought for a while and said, the time is too short for us to discuss. This is not a trivial matter. That's your business, you only have half an hour. After Mystique finished speaking, she was about to interrupt the communication. At this time, Sloane stepped forward and shouted, you still have to return the loom to me. Textile machine. Nick Fury and the World Security Council looked confused. Why would someone suddenly come out of such a serious meeting and ask for a textile machine? Is this painting style completely different from before? Gideon mocked, is S.H.I.E.L.D. so in decline now? Are you even trying to rob other people's looms? Nick Fury thought of his actions last month and said, I remember, are you from the Assassin Brotherhood? Sloane said, yes, you must return the loom to us and promise not to interfere with our Assassin Brotherhood again in the future. We need to discuss this. Nick Fury said, if he remembered correctly, the mysterious loom seemed to have been robbed. The time left for you is running out. Mystique snorted and interrupted the communication. She looked at the people behind her with a look of confusion. How did the Daily Bugle get the news? The World Security Council also wants to know the answer to this question. Just after the negotiation, the content of the negotiation was broadcast live by Clarion TV. It's really our New York, why am I not surprised at all? New Yorkers complained and sped up to escape. The streets and alleys were full of vehicles leaving the city, and the airport was full. This shitty place in New York has great feng shui, Gideon shouted. Nick Fury, didn't you say there is a way to solve this matter? Solve it quickly. Also, find out who leaked the secret. S.H.I.E.L.D. cannot be a sieve. If you want to solve this matter, you must lend the cosmic Rubik's Cube to the Red Devil. Nick Fury explained the Red Devil's request. In fact, he had permission to use the Rubik's Cube. The reason why he applied was to get the World Security Council to take the blame. The World Security Council discussed the matter and chose to agree. Then, Nick Fury called the White Queen and said, we agreed to lend the Cosmic Cube. However, Emma Frost, I am here to solemnly warn you that if the Rubik's Cube is lost, the whole world will hunt you down. Director Fury, don't judge others by yourself. The White Queen snorted and said, give me your address and the Red Devil will teleport there to get the Cosmic Cube. Don't play tricks. We're not that stupid. Nick Fury didn't waste any time and directly reported an address. The Red Devil teleported over and got the box containing the Rubik's Cube from the person in charge. Then, the Red Devil teleported back to Hell and handed the box to Andrew respectfully. Chapter 89 Space Gem. You are listening at MTnovel.audio. Andrew opened the box, and a blue cube shone inside. It was the cosmic Rubik's Cube. He grabbed it from the air, and the space gem flew out of the Rubik's Cube and landed on his left hand. The Red Devil was a little surprised. There was actually a gem in the Rubik's Cube. I'm afraid even S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't know about this, right? At this time, a large amount of space energy turned into blue lightning and poured into Andrew's body. The surrounding void was distorted. Andrew let out a low roar and called on the power of the devil to suppress the space gem. Soon, the space energy disappeared, and the space gem merged into Andrew's palm, officially becoming his treasure. It seems that the compatibility between me and the space gem is very high, and the space gem does not reject me. Andrew was a little excited. The space gem was the top treasure, enough to close the gap between him and the veteran lords. In other words, he was now on the same level as Mephisto. Thinking of something, Andrew looked up into the void. Ancient One did not stop him and allowed him to get the space gem. It seemed that Ancient One did not have any ill intentions towards him. What does it mean to get the space gem? Means two things. First, even if the Earth explodes, Rebirth Hell will not be affected, because the space gem is enough to protect Rebirth Hell. Second, even if there is a problem in the little hell, Andrew can come and go freely on the Earth, and Countermeasures formation cannot stop the space gem. What did Ancient One see in the future to indulge me like this? Andrew shook his head. No matter what Gui thought, it was definitely right to improve his strength. When he became the Lord of Hell, he no longer had to worry about anyone. Asazo, well done, you deserve a reward. Andrew clicked his fingers, and a burst of space energy rushed into the Red Devil's body. The Red Devil let out a loud roar, and his eyes glowed blue. Immediately afterwards, the Red Devil teleported crazily in the hall. Because the speed was too fast, many afterimages were even formed. His teleportation speed was several times faster than before. I can't bear this little energy. Andrew shook his head, too lazy to pay attention to the Red Devil. His big hand shook, and a ball of space energy formed a glowing counterfeit space gem. Then, Andrew sent the counterfeit gem back to the cosmic cube. With this counterfeit, the function of the cosmic cube will not be affected. Energy weapons can still be made, and interstellar portals can still be opened. In other words, the drama of aliens invading New York will not be affected, but when the energy is used up, the cosmic cube will disappear. It's just a fish's eyes, hiding the truth from the truth. Andrew nodded with satisfaction. As for whether someone would be tricked by a copycat universe Rubik's Cube, it was none of his business. At this time, the Red Devil stopped in front of Andrew and said with great gratitude, "Thank you, boss. You're welcome, work hard and you will become stronger in the future." Andrew sent the cosmic Rubik's Cube to the Red Devil and said, "Return to Earth and return the Rubik's Cube to S.H.I.E.L.D." The Red Devil was stunned. "Give it back to S.H.I.E.L.D. What's the problem?" "I borrowed and returned it, sir." Andrew said. The Red Devil did not dare to ask any more questions, and took the cosmic cube out of Rebirth Hell and teleported to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. After the Red Devil left, Andrew sat on the throne and carefully analyzed the space gem in his palm in order to completely master the rules of space. Only by mastering the rules of space can the power of space gems be truly unleashed. It can not only be used for teleportation and teleportation. You must know that Captain Marvel was also created by space gems. At the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, the Red Devil appeared out of thin air. Nick Fury was stunned for a moment, then roared at him, "Red Devil, where did you go just now?" It took several minutes for the Red Devil to disappear and then reappear. During these minutes, Nick Fury almost went crazy because he thought the Red Devil had run away with the cosmic cube. "Go and recharge, look at my eyes, aren't you cool?" The Red Devil pointed at his glowing eyes and said excitedly. Nick Fury looked into his eyes and said in astonishment, "Don't tell me that you borrowed the Rubik's Cube just to give yourself a pair of eyes that will blind others." "I don't know what I'm doing, but I've evolved, do you understand?" The Red Devil smiled disdainfully. He put the box on the table and said, "I'll give you back the Rubik's Cube. Don't always think the worst of people. Although I look like a devil, I'm not as shameless as you." Nick Fury opened the box immediately and breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that the cosmic cube was still inside. The Red Devil sneered and turned to Professor Charles. "Professor, I will take you to the space station. Now I can even go to the moon, let alone the space station. No wonder you want the Tesseract." Professor Charles suddenly understood and said, take me to the space station. It's time for this farce to end. Wait, take Agent Patton with you. Nick Fury hurriedly shouted that he would not feel at ease without his own people. Barton came over with a bow and nodded to Professor Charles. Professor Charles did not object. Then, the Red Devil took the two of them and teleported to the space station at the same time. At the space station, Dr. Reed couldn't wait to ask Mystique, "Mystique, can I start doing experiments?" Mystique was a little speechless. She had never encountered such a persistent researcher. Even Susan couldn't help but look at Dr. Reed a few more times. These glances made Dr. Reed more confident in his judgment. As long as this experiment was successful, Susan would come back to him. Not only for the whole world, but also for my own woman. Okay, you go do the experiment. Before Mystique finished speaking, 3 people appeared out of thin air along with the red mist. When Mystique saw the shining bald head, she immediately knew something was wrong and immediately wanted to activate the space-based weapon. The controller of the space-based weapon was in her on the body. It can be controlled by voice. Unfortunately, it was too late. Following a mental wave, all the mutants present, including the assassin Sloan, all lost control of their bodies. As soon as Barton saw Mystique, he immediately raised his longbow and prepared to shoot. Professor Charles shouted, "Agent Barton, she is no longer a threat." "It better be so." Barton glanced at Mystique, who was unable to move, and said, "Red Devil, take Mystique and the others back to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Let's talk after a rest." The Red Devil said, "In fact, he doesn't really need to rest, he is just unhappy with Barton's attitude. I am an outstanding employee who has been praised by the devil himself. Why are you, an agent, dragging me down?" Barton frowned, but there was nothing he could do about the Red Devil. He thought for a while, walked up to Mystique and snatched the controller away. Then, he reported the matter to Nick Fury. Nick Fury breathed a sigh of relief and said to the people at the World Security Council, "It's solved, S.H.I.E.L.D. will not let you down. Thank God you're finally here." Seeing Professor Charles and Agent Patton, Tony breathed a sigh of relief and said, "I want to ask, has my kidnapping been reported?" "This is what you care about most?" Barton complained, and he said, "Don't worry, it has been reported. The headline is that Tony Stark has been kidnapped again."